Hi, I'm Paul Arthur. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of today's top stories. The U.S. announces a new 10% tariff to combat forced labor. Prime Minister Carney says it was not a surprise. Plus, Premier Danielle Smith touts a stronger economic alliance between Alberta and Quebec during a visit to Quebec City. And still without passenger service, the city unveils its 2026 roadmap for the Lethbridge Airport.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Thanks for joining us. The Trump administration is proposing a 10% additional tariff on Canada and other countries following an investigation into forced labor in supply chains. The U.S. Trade Representative released a report late yesterday saying Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, along with some other countries, should be hit with the duties because they weren't enforcing bans on forced labor. The new tariff would not apply to goods compliant under the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement on Trade. Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke with reporters this morning.
This is not a surprise. It's something that the U.S. has been planning for a few months. I think very importantly is that two things. One is that the tariffs are consulted for 30 days or 30-plus days. Secondly, explicitly in the decision, Canada, the carve-out for CUSMA is referenced and maintained. So that puts us in a position where, again, we would still have the best trade deal of any of the U.S. trade counterparts. I want to say as well that the issue, the motivation of the U.S. action, the 301 tariffs against, or proposed tariffs against a variety of countries, is something that we share. Canada has a very strong legislative regime against forced labor in supply chains. We don't want any element of forced labor coming in goods and services, and we want to use our influence to eliminate this practice of forced labor and child labor.
Carney says new rules around forced labor are in the works to strengthen Canada's enforcement regime. The government will propose those rules in the coming weeks in the Commons. Some of Canada's largest environmental groups say Ottawa has gone too far in undermining environmental and climate policy. Representatives of 14 groups were on Parliament Hill today, urging Ottawa to reverse course on what they're calling rollbacks of environmental policy.
The federal government says we must build quickly to address U.S. threats. We agree. But declaring federal economic zones as law-free areas, broadly undermining environmental rules, approving projects before impacts are studied, and setting aside species protection isn't building. It's destructive and it's dangerous. We're told that environmental protection is red tape and that this hinders development. Yet no examples, no evidence are given that any of the regulations in this country are actually stopping a project.
Speaking to the Canadian press on his way into his weekly Liberal caucus meeting this morning, Prime Minister Mark Carney says the government is not throwing away environmental protections. Two discussion papers released by Ottawa last month, in part, propose approving projects before they're reviewed and exempting certain projects from laws meant to protect species at risk. Canada's Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson was in Langford, BC today, where he met with forest ministers from across Canada and announced $130 million in funding for 56 projects across the country.
These projects will advance new low-carbon wood technologies. They will expand the use of mass timber in construction, which is a key part of our plan to build more homes faster. They will support Indigenous participation and forest sector businesses. They will help manufacturers create higher value products for Canadian wood, and they will open doors to new export markets around the world as part of our strategy to diversify Canadian trade.
Hodgson says the challenges facing forestry go beyond Trump-era tariffs and are also structural. The minister released a report by a task force charged with finding ways to restructure and retool the sector. The report says obstacles include unstable access to affordable fiber, excessive regulations, weak capacity to innovate, and inadequate domestic demand for wood-based products. It says the forest sector faces an existential risk if there's not immediate and decisive action. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith talked about economic partnership Wednesday in Quebec. Smith appeared at an event in Quebec City hosted by the Montreal Council on Foreign Relations and the Federation of Chambers of Commerce of Quebec. After delivering some remarks in French, Smith told business leaders she thinks Alberta and Quebec should forge ahead with a stronger economic alliance.
With our powerful economies, both Alberta and Quebec stand to gain so much from working together, forging ahead as partners in this ever-evolving project we call Confederation. There is so much that we can offer each other because our economic strengths complement each other in so many ways. Just a few examples: plastics and other materials produced in Alberta's industrial heartland feed into Quebec's mighty manufacturing industries, which in turn supply machinery and electronics and transportation equipment to heavy industry operating in our province. Then there's agriculture. Alberta's farmers and ranchers supply beef. Last night I had some bison as well from Alberta. Wheat, barley, and canola to firms in Quebec, which feed into your province's incredibly sophisticated agri-food processing sector. Our capacity for scale and your relentless technological innovation adds up to a stronger domestic food supply and a more globally competitive export capacity. And we see lots of other points of connection too, in aerospace and defense, in critical minerals, in liquefied natural gas and clean energy. And with shifting geopolitics, Alberta is keen to collaborate on an east-west energy corridor as discussion about energy, sovereignty, and security become increasingly relevant.
Smith was set to meet later Wednesday with Quebec Premier Christine Frechette. Ottawa is directing the CRTC to abandon plans to triple streamers' contributions to Canadian content and will instead invest $600 million in the sector. The regulator had proposed requiring services such as Netflix to contribute 15% of Canadian revenues. The Motion Picture Association had called on Cabinet to reconsider the current approach, and the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, called for the policy to be rescinded. Asked whether the decision is another concession to the U.S., Prime Minister Carney said the government was looking at how much the new policy would cost Canadians. Culture Minister Mark Miller says trade concerns raised by the United States were a factor, but not the only reason for the change. Racial tensions are running high in the United Kingdom after police released body cam footage from a December stabbing. The footage shows police handcuffing the stabbing victim, Henry Nowak, who later died. The video spawned protests in the streets of the coastal city of Southampton on Tuesday.
Violence erupted in the English coastal city of Southampton on Tuesday night, with police pelted with chairs, cans and rocks after hundreds gathered to protest the death of teenager Henry Nowak. Nowak was fatally stabbed by Vikram Digwa, who later falsely claimed he had been the victim of a racist assault. Digwa was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. The court determined that Digwa had lied about being the victim of racism. Following the sentencing, police released body cam footage from the night of the killing. It showed that when officers arrived at the scene, they initially treated Nowak as a suspect, handcuffing him before realising he had been seriously injured and attempting to resuscitate him.
What's happened to you, right? Been stabbed. You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Despite appeals from Nowak's father not to use his son's death to create further division, hatred or violence, leader of the Anti-Immigration Reform UK party, Nigel Farage, cited the case as an example of what he called two-tier policing, a popular far-right talking point that claims ethnic minorities are better treated than white people.
The anger that you saw spilling out in Southampton last night is in danger, condemn the violence, which is in danger of getting considerably worse.
The sentencing and release of the footage prompted activists to organise a protest outside Southampton Central Police Station. Among those attending was far-right activist Stephen Yaxley-Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson. A large group later marched to an area near Digwa's family home. Clashes broke out as police blocked attempts to enter the street. Officers were struck by objects and several confrontations followed. The UK government condemned the protests, accusing activists of hijacking a tragedy.
But no matter the pain we feel, there is no justification for more violence and disorder.
In the wake of the killing, some politicians have called for Sikhs to be banned from carrying ceremonial knives known as kirpans. The judge said Digwa did have a small kirpan, but was also carrying an 8-inch Sikh dagger that was used as the weapon to kill Novak. The Alberta government is pumping more money into skilled trades to make it easier for workers to learn new skills while staying on the job. In collaboration with the Christian Labour Association of Canada, the government is investing $4 million to support skilled trades workers preparing for certification and Red Seal exams through an advanced learning platform.
This pilot uses an adaptive learning platform to support workers in critical trades including welders, iron workers, steam fitter pipe fitters, and instrumentation technicians. It provides a more targeted way for eligible workers to prepare under the existing trades qualifier program criteria. The platform assesses a learner's existing knowledge, identifies gaps, and tailors training to focus on what each individual needs. By focusing on those areas, it helps workers prepare more efficiently while continuing to meet Alberta's current certification requirements.
The Christian Labour Association of Canada, or CLAC, represents approximately 24,000 workers in Alberta, primarily in heavy industrial construction and maintenance. CLAC will partner with Canadian training provider BILT to learn to deliver the adaptive learning platform as part of the 2-year pilot. In local news, the City of Lethbridge has unveiled what it calls a roadmap for our local airport as regular passenger service to YQL comes to an end. WestJet is ending their single route service to and from Calgary after June 23rd. The city says they are in talks with other airlines to potentially bring back passenger service. In the meantime, the city is prioritizing stabilizing costs and revenue at the airport and exploring further connectivity needs to better serve residents and businesses.
So we are in talks with airlines pretty consistently right now, and I will say we're optimistic that there will be something in the future. We're just not sure what the timeline will be for that because airline network planning does take a lot of time. The other side is kind of on the more non-passenger general aviation side, so trying to attract more businesses on the more corporate charter, maybe hangar needs, things like that. So helps on the land development side as well. And then focusing more heavily on the land development itself, and that could be anything from like commercial, industrial, those types of things, and how we can utilize the land better and offset the costs of operating the airport.
Activity remains busy at the airport, even with the departure of WestJet. In 2025, there was an average of 100 daily flights involving charter and private aviation, cargo, medevac services, RCMP operations, flight training, as well as agricultural and resource development flights. If you've been driving along 43rd Street South in our city, chances are you've noticed construction work on a new pedestrian pathway. This trail, which the city calls Pathway 17, runs along 43rd Street South and South Parkside Drive and is meant to improve city connections and boost safety for pedestrians and bikers. Final work is currently taking place at the intersection of 43rd Street and 20th Avenue South to complete concrete repair work, which has closed the intersection, and motorists will have to take detours in the meantime. Work will wrap up Friday, weather permitting. Other than this current project, the trail is now completed and is open to commuters. As Lethbridge celebrates Seniors Week, the Live Well Showcase is returning to the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. Now, in its 13th year, Western Canada's largest seniors trade show will connect older adults with new products, services, and resources designed to support healthy aging. LSCO Executive Director Caitlin Weaver shares more about what attendees can expect from the two-day event.
We're going to have about 1,500 to 2,000 seniors exploring, over 70 vendors who support seniors in some capacity. Celebration of Seniors Week. So we love having this massive showcase to show all that the community offers for seniors. And then we also have a variety of presentations on different things that are important or informational for seniors to learn how to live well. But this year we have 50% new vendors. So the whole entire event is completely different. And then our keynote speakers and our presentations are going to be really, really informative. We have Greg McGillis, who is the CEO and founder of Brain Care Technology, and he's going to showcase all of the tech that comes with aging. He has a EEG cap to help identify if there's any cognitive decline in older adults, and it's a really mobile, easy way to showcase difference in brain function, and we're really excited for him to speak about that. And it's also one of our biggest fundraisers. It's free for seniors to access, but our vendors are supporting a good cause while also marketing their own businesses and organizations by supporting us with vendor fees.
The event runs Thursday and Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Long before anyone logged on, swiped a screen, or sent a text message, amateur radio operators were already building global networks, one conversation at a time. Ham radio was long celebrated before the advent of the internet. A hidden gem in our city is the Radio Museum at the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. And a new partnership with local media is helping continue that legacy. Local radio station CJOC has partnered with the Radio Museum to further engage with their efforts to show the relevancy of local radio in our community.
Most of this equipment, in fact, I would say 99% of it, has been bequested to the LSCO Amateur Radio Club from what we call silent keys, people who have passed away, and they have donated their equipment.
We were talking about how can we serve each other? How can we promote radio in general? How can we get excited and get people excited about ham radio? And we decided to work together on the CJOC radio room here at the LSCO. This club has been around since the opening of the LSCO, and as the executive director, I was really excited that it is here, and I wanted to kind of help reinvigorate it and get people talking about it, get it really kind of up front, and partnering with CJOC made the most sense. They just had their 100th anniversary this year, and last year we had our 50th anniversary, and so we're really grateful that they are supporting our radio club.
An experimental drug that doubles survival time for people with pancreatic cancer is being hailed as a breakthrough. A phase 3 trial for the drug daraxonrasib boosted survival to more than 1 year compared to a 6-month survival time for those who received chemotherapy alone.
I think the world expected to see that this drug would improve survival for pancreas cancer, and we wouldn't say no to any help there because so many things just don't work. But to see it double the survival, I mean, it's never been seen in pancreas cancer before. I worked in pancreas cancer a long time, and it can be very exhausting, and we need hope. And this is not just hope. This is unprecedented.
Daraxonrasib works by targeting a faulty protein in a mutated gene that leads to unchecked tumor growth, sort of like a switch in the on mode, sending never-ending signals for cancer cells to grow and multiply. The drug is able to turn that switch off. Doctors say now there's hope for other pill-based treatments, not only for pancreatic cancer, but other potentially deadly cancers as well.
I'm Sean Haney with RealAgriculture.com. Canada's top trade representatives are in Washington this week, making a high-stakes push to jumpstart stalled continental trade talks. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Chief Negotiator Janice Clarett are meeting with U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer as Ottawa tries to break the ice before the critical July 1st deadline decision. Formal trilateral talks remain suspended, and Washington has already used the divide and conquer kind of strategy by opening isolated reviews with Mexico and the U.S. separately. The U.S. is aggressively pushing Mexico for heavy automotive concessions, demanding an 82% North American content rule and a 50% U.S.-specific content threshold. While manufacturing faces massive protectionist headwinds, Western Canada's energy, fertilizer, and grain remain largely insulated. Prime Minister Mark Carney, his recent pitch for a Fortress North America aligns directly with Washington's desire to block Chinese supply chains. In this transactional environment, our resources aren't just commodities, they are Canada's ultimate bargaining chips. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney with realagriculture.com.
The new owners of Zellers will soon expand the relaunched brand to Ontario, but are first making a few tweaks. A new discount storefront is set up to open near Toronto's Yorkdale Mall on June 18th and another at Windsor's Tecumseh Mall in July. Like the Edmonton location that marked the brand's relaunch last year, the stores will be stocked with some apparel, home goods, luggage, and seasonal items. The Ontario stores will also introduce snack foods and toys. As the company's chief operating officer says, toys ended up being a bestseller in Edmonton. Joy Benetta, Zellers' chief operating officer, says the plan is to slowly nationalize the brand and to ultimately be in every major market from coast to coast. Canadian auto sales fell 1.7% in May compared with a year earlier, with an estimated 184,000 vehicles sold, according to DeRosier Automotive Consultants. The decline marks the 8th consecutive month of year-over-year sales decreases for the industry. Managing partner Andrew King said hopes of surpassing 190,000 vehicle sales in May, typically the strongest month of the year, did not materialize. The firm says economic uncertainty, higher fuel prices linked to the conflict in the Middle East, and concerns about inflation have caused many Canadian households to curb spending. And now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 367 to 34,801. The Dow is down 620 to 50,687. The S&P 500 was down 56 to 75,053. And the Nasdaq was down 239 to 26,853. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 242 to 96.18 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 9 cents to 3.25 US. Gold was down 55.52 to 44.34.53 US an ounce, and silver was down 2.39 to 72.74 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.46 per bushel. Barley is at $6.86. Canola is at $18.10 and corn is at $7.54 per bushel. Live cattle are down 105 to 246.62. Feeder cattle August contract was down 5.80 to 342.62. Lean hogs are up 35 cents to 96.05, and the Canadian dollar was even, sitting at 72 cents US.
Recapping one of today's top stories, the Trump administration is proposing a 10% additional tariff on Canada and other countries, following an investigation into forced labor and supply chains, which allegedly shows that we aren't enforcing bans on forced labor. Prime Minister Carney says this did not come as a surprise and that new rules are in the works to strengthen enforcement. The Canadian economy is technically in recession, and it's having a real impact, putting financial pressure on families across the country. Are government programs the answer, or is this an opportunity for the church to help out our neighbors? That will require some money, and with some advice on how to steward finances and trust God for provision is businessman and evangelist Steve Holmstrom. That interview is straight ahead. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our content as well as our poll questions.